Looks like you've been missing a lot of work lately.
I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
What would you say you do here?
God damn it. Bob, we love playing here tonight. My brother's ready.
It helps if you think of it as a game, Bob. Every game has a winner and a loser.
You must possess strength to inflict pain, Bob.
Yo, welcome to episode 34 of the Two Bobs Cast. We are an A to Z rock and metal podcast, going through the alphabet, picking bands, going through their discographies, giving our opinions, a million times that we've seen them live, 19 times live sometimes in some instances, right, Mr. H?
Yeah, plus.
We are the Two Bobs. I am Herd, and I'm here once again with my partner, Mr. H. How you doing, Mr. H?
Doing great, man. Great. This was a very, very enjoyable week listening to one of my favorite bands ever.
Yeah,
Awesome.
a lot of fun. And he's referring to the great Bay thrash legends Testament. So, looking forward to getting into them. It's funny because they're noted as, not noted as one of the big four, but man, I would love to have that conversation with
You're right.
who crowned, the fourth band, whether
Mhm.
it's Slayer or Anthrax, and how can Testament get a vote in there? Because my God,
I don't think I could argue Slayer, but I could definitely make a case for Testament over Anthrax.
Maybe,
But I love Anthrax too.
Me too.
I mean,
Me
but
too.
it's just those two are so close to me. Like those two are the close ones. So there almost should have been a big five, really.
Yeah, I don't know why we have to.
Because then I
limit
think
four.
there's like a drop off. Like, yeah, there's Exodus, and but I feel like there's just kind of a gap there from the Anthrax Testament level down to the next one.
Yeah. Well, and we'll get into it because Testament, I think, is just so much more than thrash, and so is Metallica, so is Megadeth. I mean, they
Right.
just, it's just I feel
Metallica shedded the thrash label long ago.
and Testament never really got rid of the thrash, but
No.
what they but they added more technical, and they added more almost whatever you want to look at it as, almost they had longer songs and things like that, so they don't follow the formula of necessarily.
Right.
And
the
they
3-minute bash it out,
Right,
thrash song, right?
Yeah, right. So they're Slayer sometimes, but sometimes they're not, and they have more solos. And again, we'll get into all that stuff. But yeah, excellent. So what do you got about Testament?
Testament formed in Berkeley, California, 1983, 42 years ago. Originally called Legacy. Currently, Eric Peterson was the only original member that was there the entire time. Alex Skolnick was 15 when he joined the band, but he left for 13 years in the middle, which we'll get to. Chuck Billy is the singer now. Alex Skolnick's in the band. Steve DiGiorgio is an unreal bass player. Chris Dovis is their new drummer, which by all accounts, it sounds like, and bands always kind of get excited about these things, but they have said he's really been a kick in the ass for them, writing like new material. Him and Eric Peterson, who basically is the main songwriter. Him and Alex writes some stuff, and Chuck writes some stuff, but it seems like Eric was the one that's been there the whole time, and the band kind of has always had the same sound because of Eric Peterson, but apparently he really likes working with this Chris Dovis drummer. So originally Steve Zetro Souza from Exodus was the original singer in this band, but he left to replace Paul Bailoff in Exodus when he left. Peterson and Eric Peterson, Chuck Billy, the only members that are on every album. Alex Skolnick, as I said, is an original member. He left for a little while. A classic lineup is really considered Eric Peterson, Chuck Billy, Alex Skolnick, Greg Christian on bass, and Louis Clemente on drums. That's a good portion of the first 5 albums or so, which is their classic lineup, because that's really, those guys put out the most material together. Since then, there's been, guys in and out, people coming back, people leaving. But this, as heard here mentioned, this is one of my favorite bands of all time. I've seen them 18 times in Cleveland. They've played 24 times that I was able to find, and I've seen them 18 of those times. Easily over 20, adding outside of Cleveland. This is the one where I said, few podcasts ago now, that I broke my foot in at a Testament Anthrax show in 2011, late 2011 actually. I saw them in Pittsburgh one night, and then the next night in House of Blues in Cleveland, and broke one of my foot at the second show there. So that was fun. But anyway, so I did see them in Pittsburgh once. So that's 19, and I know that I've seen them at festivals that I can't count all the festivals.
Sure, yeah.
Do 5 songs at, so you go to a lot of those. You've probably seen them a bunch at festivals too. So they do a lot of that work as well. The first time I saw them was at Peabody's in the Flats down in Cleveland, July 1988, with Violence and Sanctuary. The most recent time was October 2024, just this past year, with Creator and Possessed. Outstanding show. But yeah, seen them a whole lot of times. So can't get enough of them, man.
I wish I would have seen them more, but again, I'm not as big of a fan as you. I like them a lot, but I don't know. I guess I just got into them, a little bit later. I probably have seen them 5, 6, 7 times, something like that. First time I saw them was at Tower City Amphitheater with Slayer.
Is that one? Yep.
And Megadeth, I think, headlined.
Yep. Yeah, that was great. Get those 3 bands together, unbelievable. Yeah, I've seen them with Slayer probably 5 times. I think I've seen Testament with Slayer.
Yep.
That being one of them. So it's crazy. So it's great to have these bands that are really kind of close to you, that you really like, that have had these just gigantic careers where you can still go see Testament, and it's not quite the same. We were discussing a little bit before we started. It's not quite the same as seeing them, during Low at the Agora, or during Practice What You Preach, during that time at Peabody's or wherever.
Yeah. But
they're still almost as good now, and in some ways better, because they're more polished. They have a better stage show than they did back then. There's more. The backdrops are cool. They do have a lot of cool artwork on their album covers. So,
yeah,
they've always had really cool shirts. So they, in some ways, it's a little bit better, but they're still fantastic to see live. They sound amazing. They haven't lost much at all. Like, we're talking like quarter steps here, not like they haven't lost a step by any means. Like, they sound amazing.
Well, especially Chuck. Chuck just, it's going to, as he goes with the singer, a lot of time, but he sounds phenomenal still.
He does, and it's weird because of the way he sings. You figured it would just wear his vocal cords out, but he's such a big dude.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it just pours out of him, and it's almost easy for him,
Seems like it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And even beyond their most recent albums, and I don't think the next one's going to be any different. I feel like it's going to be solid, just like the last few have been. So anyway, first album out in April 21st, 1987. They put out, called The Legacy. There's 9 songs on this one. A guy named Alex Perialis produced. He produced the first few of these. The first song I've ever heard by them was Apocalyptic City. It was on a metal compilation cassette. I love the song. It's the last song on this album, and it kind of hooked me right away, because that's one of the few, I think, on this album that actually sounds like Testament is going to sound in the next few albums. Like, this album's really heavy.
Yeah.
So, they still play songs, they play Alone in the Dark, they play Over the Wall, they play Raging Waters sometimes, they play Apocalyptic City. They still play these songs live.
First Strike is Deadly, they played that recently too.
Yeah. So but Apocalyptic City, to me, and Alone in the Dark are kind of the two songs that kind of sound like how they're going to sound, and are kind of like, I don't think I got this album right away,
Yeah.
but I did hear Apocalyptic City and I really liked it. So yeah, it's just really, really good stuff. Chuck Billy was in a band called Guilt at first, and he was asked to join after Zetro Souza left. He had also performed with Testament a few times prior, also. So they're definitely Bay Area friends. They had been even before he was in the band. So they changed their name to Testament about a month prior to release of Legacy because they found there was an R&B hotel cover band called Legacy. I was like, that's a fantastic story.
Yeah, they got
So,
that trademark. That was interesting
right,
to me. Like they
yeah,
went all in.
right, all in on their R&B cover
Yeah,
band, like doing weddings,
right.
So that's too funny. But hey, I'm glad they're called Testament.
Yep.
This is the only album with songwriting contributions from Souza and original Legacy singer Derek Ramirez until later, I found out. So there's some Zetro Souza songwriting credits that I wasn't even aware of later on in this catalog that we'll get to. My favorites on this one, I'm going to try not to get into too much detail here because we do have 12 albums to get through. I don't want to make a 4-hour podcast. I could talk about Testament all night.
Right.
I told you, I almost wish we could do 2 weeks of Testament. I would just listen to all their albums and then listen to them all again for another week because I love them so
Yeah.
much. So
Me too. Yeah.
especially because we're doing U2 next, and like the gap between these two bands is just ridiculously huge. So
Damn it,
it's
you.
gonna be right. Damn you.
Right.
So it's gonna be really hard to downshift into U2 after listening to all this great Testament stuff. So
Right.
the skippers, I just left it blank. I'm gonna leave it blank for a while. There are some later. This isn't like Slayer for me where I had no skippers. There are definitely they went into some territory that I wasn't a huge fan of Testament, but it's still all heavy, right? So
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, they went into some really, really heavy stuff that I'm just not as big a fan of. But even that they did well. It's just not something that I like as much. But we'll talk about that when we get there. I have this one rated as a B. My favorites are Over the Wall, Raging Waters, Alone in the Dark, Apocalyptic City, as I mentioned. I have no skippers. I have this as a B. I have this number 6. So out of 12, this is kind of in the middle for me. This is one of the ones, I think I have 3 or 4 of these albums rated as just a straight B. So it was hard for me to try to put these 4 albums-ish in order. And I already flip-flopped a couple of them this morning from when I first ranked them to later in the day. I'm like, no, that's not right. I feel like I like this one better. So this is one of those that was tough for me to try to flip-flop. But I like a little more melodic sounds that they would kind of produce later that I mentioned that are on a couple of these songs. But I feel like their sound was kind of still evolving on this one. Like Alex Skolnick's 19, these guys as a band all together hadn't been together really that long yet. So I feel like they were still kind of searching for their sound. But man, did they find it on the next record, and then just off they went. So, but I do still like this album. What did you think of The Legacy?
Yeah, I liked it a whole lot. To me, with you again, and I'm a little bit younger, but obviously, Dad, I didn't start here. I started way later and went back.
What did you start with?
I started with The Gathering.
Just out of curious. Okay.
Yeah. So The Gathering was the first one that I listened to. I didn't get it when it first came out, but then I was in. So
yeah.
Not for better or worse.
I just wonder where your jumping off point was, because that's always interesting to see what you think up to that point and then after. It's always interesting to hear that.
But this is really, it's just really, really good. It's the closest debut album to like the Metallica, to the Megadeth, where there's a lot of big solos in here.
Yeah.
They kind of separate themselves from other, like, I don't want to say, because Metallica and Megadeth are just like a different category for me. But,
yep, they are, for sure.
But with Testament, I just really respect Skolnick's playing so much that, him being a jazz guitar, like he does jazz stuff. And then this is like his other project that he does where he gets this out. And he's trained by Satriani, I think, with him and Hammett. So there's a lot of similarities, though. I really like. I feel like when Skolnick is playing together with Peterson, I feel like it's magic. It's magical.
It is. That's a perfect way to put it.
So I'm a big fan of this one. It's a little bit rough, and You know,
Mm-hmm.
we're real reverby and stuff, but that's the time. You know, that's the '80s thrash thing. I liked this album a lot more than I thought I would going back to it. This is all the way up to number 3 for me. A minus, and I'll just say right off the bat, another band here that nothing is a D. Everything is better than a D. Everything is worth listening to. It's really hard to rank some of these. So, you know, this one could be in a you know, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like I could have went either way with any of them. But just when I popped this on, I guess I was just so pleasantly surprised that I really, really liked it.
Did you listen to the remastered one that they just came out with?
I did, and I don't like it.
Okay,
I
okay.
don't like the I'd
I
rather
wondered
have
how
the.
much that had to do with it.
Yeah, no, I like this way better. I just like the like if
Just the old
Metallica,
school sounding one.
yeah, like it fits the songs, it fits the time. Like if Metallica went back and re-recorded Kill 'Em All, I would probably not like it. I would be like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know, maybe it will. Maybe there's some instances where it would, but Over the Wall, I love Raging Waters, First Strike is Deadly. Just all good stuff here. I really, really like it. Again, number 3 for me. I was shocked that it went this high, but there's so much good stuff here. It's really like almost, you know, just splitting hairs with a lot of these. They're all really, really good, but I like this one a lot. So it's an A minus, and I definitely will keep going back to this a lot.
Yeah, I'm kind of, now that I know that you started with The Gathering, like that actually makes a lot of sense because there's some similarities here with the heaviness
Yep.
of the music on these albums.
Yep.
So The Gathering is much later, but this one
Hmm.
is pretty close to that in a lot of ways. So I can
And they're
totally
pretty close in the
hear that.
ranking too. I'll just
Yeah,
say.
I believe it.
Yep.
All right, on to the New Order. This is getting into my sweet spot here of my Testament enjoyment. Uh, May 10th, 1988. So some bands, Slayer at this point, right? So we just did Slayer. Slayer did, an album in what, 83, and then 84, and then 86, and then 88, and then 90. Well, Testament, man, they're like right 87, right? Already bands are starting to take a year in between, right? Not Testament. So they're April of 87, May of 88. The next one is August of 89. Like they're just hammering them out. So and they grow from each one too. So I'm guessing that's probably a lot to do with them playing live and being around each other, and actually growing as a band together, because their sound and how they evolve into this really happened quickly. And they didn't put another legacy out. Like this album sounds different than that one. Like
Sure. Yep.
this is the first album to break the Billboard 200. Like they were in the Billboard 200 with their second album as a thrash band. So they had a great video for Trial by Fire that was on MTV all the time. Like so they were out there, and for a thrash band now without Slayer and Rain and Blood and all that, I'm not sure that they would have been as popular because people were embracing this type of music at that time too. But
Yeah. They
but
just
this
wanted
is
more.
yeah, right. And like more, and this is a little different than Slayer. This has got a little bit more melody to it. And people are like,
Sure.
whoa, what is this now?
Yeah.
Like this is taking that in another direction. So to me, this Alex Alice again. This sounds to me better than the Legacy. The production's better, and only a year later. So he was growing, I think, as a producer. This was mixed better. There's two instrumentals on here. It's kind of funny. It was in their contract that the album had to be 40 minutes long. So they went on tour for the Legacy. They went in the studio. They cranked out this album. It was like 32 minutes long. They sent it to the record company. Record company sent it back and said, nope, not good enough.
Yep.
So they extended a song, and then they put two instrumentals in it to get it over 40 minutes.
Yep.
So I thought that was pretty funny. So they added, and sorry, they also added Nobody's Fault, Aerosmith cover song, which is fantastic. So they added that too, which all good stuff for us because it was all great stuff that they added. They could really do no wrong on these next couple albums for me. My favorites here are the New Order, Trial by Fire, Into the Pit, Disciples of the Watch, Preacher. I could just go on and on with this one. I could just name all of them. Absolute zero skippers. This is an A for me. I love this album. I feel like maybe if it was just a little bit longer, it would be an A plus, or maybe if it didn't have two instrumentals and only one, and like maybe one other song. maybe it would have been an A plus, but I saved the A plus for the one that I loved the most. So this I could have 2 A pluses, but you know I'm a little stingy with those. I did give out 2 to Slayer, and that's probably going to be maybe the only time I do it. So I did see them for the first time in this tour at Peabody's in the Flats, and I'm not going to go over the top and say it changed my life, but it's one that I'll never forget. Like especially Violence and Sanctuary like opening. Like I had never experienced anything like this. Like I had just turned 16 years old, and I had never experienced a show like this before. I'd seen Van Halen. I'd seen David Lee Roth. I've seen these arena shows. I saw Iron Maiden. I hadn't seen any club show of thrash metal like this. That just the energy and the moshing and like the stuff that was going on, it just blew my mind. So it was unbelievable. So I do love this one. This one brings back a lot of great memories. This one I have as number 2 on my list as an A. What did you think of the New Order?
Yeah, this is my favorite. This one just it hit me where I wanted it to hit me. It's just
How
from
many
the
of these songs they still play live? Like
yeah,
5, 6 of them. It's
almost.
crazy.
Well, you just saw them play most of them at
Yeah.
where they
That's
played
true.
just New Order and
Yeah.
in
Legacy.
the Legacy. Yeah,
Yeah.
but now this is awesome. Just from that beginning, you can tell you're dealing with something different. I love Eerie Inhabitants. Like just
Yeah.
the Skolnick guitar soloing through there. Just it kind of showed you that he's different. He's a different cat here. We're not talking about Kerry King here. We're not talking. Let's see how fast we can play.
I'm getting chills with the notes going through my head right now.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I'm not even making that up.
No, but
It's
yeah,
so good.
this just showed that you were dealing with a different animal here. And Chuck sounds phenomenal, and the thrash from Peterson is just it's so consistent from beginning to end. But I love this album. Just the solos are blistering. The first 4 tracks. I would even say the first 5 because I'm not really counting Hypnosis. When you go from Eerie to New Order to Trial by Fire into the Pit, Disciples of the Watch. I mean, my God. This is nasty. This is just front to back. This is just nasty thrash with some beauty in there with the solos. I don't think I'm imagining, and again, I love Testament as well. I'm just imagining, what if you tweak the bands a little bit and we get Skolnick instead of Hammett, maybe in Metallica, maybe Hammett,
Yeah.
just kind of move things around a little bit, just because they all kind of shared members. Hammett was in Exodus, and the Sousa was in. But anyway, I love.
Don't think it would have lasted. I don't
Probably
think
not.
Skolnick would have lasted in Metallica.
with James,
yes,
and
I
Lars.
don't think it would have lasted.
Yeah, they needed a yes man.
Yeah, he's too much of a front center. He's too much of a Dave Mustaine type.
Yeah, you're right.
Like he's more of a front. He always stands up on the riser. He's always holding his guitar straight up and like posing while he's playing. Like that's totally not Kirk.
No, you're right. It isn't.
But
it isn't.
You're right. The possibilities are just endless with what they could have mixed together with these bands.
Yeah. Well, but I love it. This is number 1 for me in an A. It was easy for me. Even I love 2, which we'll get to later. I love 2, but I still think the gap is pretty sizable. This one has just always kind of been my favorite. From the first time I heard it, it was like, yeah, this is Testament to me. So nothing else has lived up to it. So I just had to make it an A. So A, number 1, the New Order. I love it.
All right, on to 1989. Just cranking them right out here. Every 14 months, it seems like. It was 13 months, then 14, and then 14 again.
Yep.
So here we go. Alex Perialis again. This album was not as popular with Testament fans of the first 2 albums, but it was also somewhat of a breakthrough for them commercially. I love this album. I absolutely love this album. I can't find anything that I don't like on this album today or in 1989, 36 years ago. I can't find anything I don't like on here. They have a ballad on here, which, I mean, that is almost sacrilege, for a thrash band of the time. But I even like that song. And the weird thing is, it's not their best ballad, in my opinion.
Yeah, it isn't.
It's kind of funny. But they tried their hand at that, and even that works because the guitar playing is so good. Like Alex Skolnick can play absolutely anything and make it sound amazing. Jazz, he can do Trans-Siberian Orchestra, which he's been doing forever. Testament, like he can shred, he can play just beautiful pieces like classic guitar. The dude can play anything. So anything that they write, it's still going to sound like Testament. And Chuck Billy, he's not like a crooner, he's still going to sound like him. So even the ballad sounds good. So the two guitar, I can't talk enough about the two guitar thrash attack, the chunky riffs, the solos. This album is a masterpiece as far as that goes. There could be no vocals on this album, and I might still have this as an A. And I'm not saying that Chuck Billy takes away from this at all, but I love the guitar on here so much. They work so well together. It's unbelievable. They don't really, unfortunately, I love so many of these songs. They don't really play any of these live anymore except Practice What You Preach. So they almost always play that one. But man, like Sins of Omission might be one of my favorite Testament songs of all time. And I think I've seen him, I've seen him all those times. I think I've seen him do it 2 times. Once on this tour, and then once maybe like 2010s, somewhere in there. They pulled a couple more of these out. If they played Sins of Omission, like Perilous Nation, I think, are the 2 that they played. Oh man. But the lyrics are political, but I don't give a crap about that. That doesn't matter to me. I never, you'll hear me say that from now until the end of time, the end of when I'm not around anymore. I don't care about lyrics. I don't need a song to speak to me. I don't need to connect with it. It just the vocals need to be an instrument that fits with the rest of the music for me. And I love what Chuck Billy does. So he's not the one that writes all the lyrics either, but the lyrics mean nothing to me. There's Greenhouse Effect on here about global warming in 1989, no less. Not 2004, 1989, but there's all kinds of Envy Life. There's all kinds of stuff on here that people just like, I don't need to hear about that. I don't care. It doesn't matter. This album's fantastic. At this point, after the first time I saw them, every time they'd come here, I'd cancel anything I had going on to go see them. And that went for this album, the next album, and the one after that, and the one after that. I saw them probably 12 of the times in the next 4 albums. Like every time they'd come to Cleveland or anywhere near here, I was there. I could not get enough of Testament. My favorites are Practice What You Preach, Perilous Nation, Envy Life. The breakdown in Envy Life is it's ridiculously good. Sins of Omission, like I mentioned, like Nightmare, Coming Back to You, that is a 2-minute song that written by Alex Skolnick that's just fantastic. Confusion Fusion is an instrumental at the end, is really good. This is an A+ for me. This is number 1. I love this album. What did you think of Practice What You Preach?
I like it for sure. I almost kick myself like, where I rank this. It's a great album, but I just like stuff more.
Yeah. I'm okay being on an island. I love this album so much. I don't care.
Good.
Nobody agrees with me.
It's
I
good.
love it.
But that's the thing. I can't argue with you and say it's not good. But,
yeah.
For me, it's number 5, and it's still a B+. And to me, that just kind of shows that how good this catalog is for me. The title track is awesome. I love Blessed in Contempt is one of my favorites. Yeah. I love that song. Envy Life is good. And you mentioned Sins of Omission. That song was phenomenal. I really, really like this album. And, I think I liked it a little bit more back in the day when, again, I told you The Gathering is when I hit them. So I kind of went back and I listened to this a lot. I like this a whole lot, but maybe it hasn't held up just because of some other stuff that's come later on.
And it's not as heavy as that album and like The Legacy is either. So I can totally understand that.
Yeah, but it's number 5 and it's a B+, and I think it's a really good album. And again, just another really, really good release for this band. And it just they don't have very many misses, and even like you said, when there is misses, it's not bad. It's just they just mess around with a few different types of things, and who hasn't? All these bands have done it at some point. So good album again for sure. It's top half of the catalog for me. So number 5, a B+ for
all right.
Practice What You Preach.
Yeah, they kind of go both ways. They that's what she said.
Yeah.
No, they kind of go to where they go in a little bit more just kind of traditional metal direction on an
Yep.
album. They
Yep.
kind of go in a death metal direction on an album. So they expand their sound a little bit. And this is kind of right in the middle, I think. Like this has some hooky kind of songwriting elements, some really good choruses, and some really great like guitar hooks in here. But it's still kind of thrashy and heavier, like you said, like Blessed in Contempt, and
Yep.
like there's still some heavier stuff in here. So it's kind of right in the middle. So I don't know, man. Maybe that's just where I like them the most.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, so more of that coming. Souls of Black, October 9th, 1990. 14 more months, 10 songs. This is Michael Rosen, his first song without Alex Perialis. Michael Rosen and Testament produced this one. In many ways, this is Practice What You Preach 2. Similar lyrical themes. Most of these songs were reworked and re-lyriced demos from New Order and Practice sessions that I guess they just produced so much good material during those two albums there in the late 80s that why not use it? But there was also other reasons why they did that. They kind of rushed the album out to get on the Clash of the Titans tour with Slayer, Megadeth, and Suicidal Tendencies. They also did a Painkiller tour with Judas Priest and Megadeth. So I mean, that's almost reason enough to kind of get an album out, because they wanted to have something new out to tour behind, and not something everybody else had something new out. There was Seasons in the Abyss and Painkiller, and Megadeth had Rust in Peace, and so they all had these new albums out. So they wanted to have a new one out too. So they reworked some songs. They kind of did this quick, and they put this out. Now, I love Practice What You Preach. I don't like this one as much. It definitely sounds like a Practice What You Preach little brother kind of thing. Like
Mhm.
they were copying, much of what that album did, but just didn't do it quite as well, I guess. Like there's another ballad on here, but it's not quite as good. But it's still a really really good Testament album. So I don't want it to sound like I'm bashing it, but I was so plugged into them at this time. I was scouring the papers every week to find out when they were coming here. Like this is slightly different sounding production, but not much. The guitar is slightly more forward, which is awesome. More vocal reverb, which was not so good. It sounded like Chuck was singing off in a closet down at the end of the hall over there. It just kind of sounded weird. You can still hear him and understand. I just didn't like the production as much from Michael Rosen. So, but again, some of that might have been because it was rushed too. They just wanted to get it out so they can get out on these tours and have some new material. My favorites on this one are Face in the Sky, Souls of Black. The title track's great song. They still play that one live. It's the only one I think they play off of here now. If that, sometimes they don't even play that one. Absence of Light, I like a lot. Malpractice, I like a lot. I still have no skippers on here, and I don't like this as much as Practice, but this one I have is a B. Again, it's another one of those B albums. This I have at number 7. It's a really good album, but definitely kind of a little brother kind of vibe to it, to the last album, but still outstanding stuff from them. What did you think of Souls of Black?
Basically read right off my paper,
Okay.
almost to the T. Not great production. I don't like the production. I don't like the way it sounds. Definitely a step back for me. I think the songs are pretty good, but I
Mm,
think it's really top heavy. I really like the beginning up to Absence of Light, and I'm not a huge fan of the back half. Um, again, no skippers. It's still a B for me as well. And I also agree with you that it's my number 7. So we're
nice.
right on the same line there. Again, I think there's a lot of good stuff here, but I just think the production brings it down for me enough to kind of make it clear what albums are above it and which ones are below it for me.
Hmm.
Songwriting's just as good. I feel like there's a lot of good stuff on here, but just doesn't sound good. Maybe the execution, maybe like you said, maybe it's the rushing it out for whatever reasons that they needed to get it out. But Souls of Black for me is it's solid. It's good. I like the songs. I just think maybe execution was not quite there. So we agree. A B album, number 7, Souls of Black.
Yeah, I just don't have this one. Like, doesn't the songs like I would? I could find every song in this album. I could find a better version that sounds similar to that on Practice What You Preach. You know what I mean? It's just, you know, none of these are as good as Perilous Nation or Blessed in Contempt
Yeah,
or Envy
right.
Life. Like but they're close. You know, they're similar, but they're just not as good. So yeah, it could be for a lot of reasons. Anyway, on to The Ritual. So they finally took a year and a half to put out an album. So they put out The Ritual May 12th, 1992. This has 11 songs on it, produced by Tony Platt, not a guy that I know much about. This was where they kind of changed in sound to a more traditional heavy metal sound. It took a lot longer for them to record this album than they usually did. They said it was a much needed change for them because, like we said, for the last 5 years, they toured, recorded, toured, wrote, recorded, toured, wrote, recorded, toured, and it's just nonstop for like 5 or 6 years. That's a lot. And they're touring the world. They're not just touring like, the West Coast and calling it a day. Like they're everywhere. So that's a lot. This is the last album with Alex Skolnick also until 2005, and the last with drummer Louis Clemente. The Ritual sounds the song The Ritual to me it's very much like a Testament version of like a Black Sabbath song. That's what kind of struck me when I was listening to it. It's dark, kind of slow, plodding, but it still sounds like Testament. Doesn't sound like Black Sabbath, but it's in that kind of vein.
Yeah.
They had a minor success with Return to Serenity also, which is the kind of ballad on this one. Now, because they put a ballad on one album, they had to put one on every album. It seems like, at least for a little bit. They knocked that off after this one. But Return to Serenity reached 22 on the Billboard Top 100 rock songs. Like that's crazy that a thrash band. Now, this isn't really a thrash album, although there are some thrashier songs on here, but it's crazy that they got that much success from that one song. And I'm sure they had a video on MTV, and I don't really remember that video that much. I remember some of the other ones. I don't remember that one all that much, but I do really like this album still, though. This is another B for me. My favorites on here are Electric Crown, So Many Lies, Let Go of My World. Let Go of My World sounds a lot to me like Practice and Souls of Black. Like that song would fit on either of those albums, but most of the rest of it doesn't sound like that, but that song does. I like The Deadline, and I like the song The Sermon a lot too. That's one that doesn't even really get a lot of plays on Spotify, I think. I think it was like a couple 100,000 or something, but I mean, I really like that song. Skippers, still none for me. So I'm 5 albums in now, right? 5th album, still no Skippers. Excuse me. I have this as a B, and I have this at number 5. I don't think this is as solid an album. I prefer a little heavier edge that they had before and on follow-ups, but it's still a solid album, just not as good, I think, as some of these other ones around it. So I did like that they tried something different though, and put out kind of a heavy metal album. Still great songs on here. You can still hear a lot of guitar solos. Alex Skolnick's still all over this one, so it's still really good. But I have this at number 5, so it's still in the top half, but as a B. What did you think of The Ritual?
So this one I wasn't a fan of.
Yeah, I could totally see that coming.
Yeah, I figured you got kind of my formula down with Testament. To me, this is kind of like their Black album. This is their
Fair.
we're thrash.
Came out at the same time, right?
Yeah,
pretty much.
It sounds good. From where I talked about the production of Souls, this is much better production wise. I don't think the songs are as good personally. It just sounds different. Not bad. Again, I don't dislike it.
Yeah.
But to me, there's almost all their other albums I'd rather listen to. But again, it's good. It sounds good. It's ear candy. I think Electric Crown is great. I heard it live, and it's phenomenal. It sounds great. So Many Lies. I do like The Ritual. You mentioned The Sermon. I really like that. And then Return to Serenity, I do like. Maybe not necessarily as Testament.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. If it was released by another band,
it's so funny that you say that.
It's just one of those things. Like if if Load, what we talked about with Metallica, if Load was done by a
Yeah.
different band, I wonder how many people would give it a more of a break to say it's not Metallica, but it's got good stuff on it. It's
Yes.
bluesier.
Yes.
I feel like The Ritual is kind of the same thing. It's just with Testament, like I just want to hear thrash, and this isn't quite thrash for me. But so it's a C plus. It's still good. I still like it, but it's number 10 for me. So there's only a couple that I like less coming up here very shortly. But it's good. It's just I like almost everything else they've done better. So for me, The Ritual is number 10, but a C plus.
All right. On to Low. So this is October 4th, 1994. 12 songs. This is Garth. Garth produced this one with Testament. James Murphy and John Tempesta, replaced Alex Skolnick and Louis Clemente. Much heavier than The Ritual. This is the heaviest album they've done since the Legacy, in my opinion. There's a bit of death metal on this one, like Dogface Gods is really, really heavy, even death metal ish. Doesn't mean it's bad. This is also dedicated to Chris Oliva from Savatage, guitarist. Ironically, Skolnick replaced Oliva in Savatage for a short time during this time and put out an album, Handful of Rain, I believe, and a month before this album came out. So, but Testament also dedicated this album to Chris Oliva. Tempesta left right after the album was recorded to join White Zombie and was replaced by John Dett for the tour, only to leave to join Slayer. And then Chris Contos, who was on Burn My Eyes with Machine Head, replaced Dett, and then he and Murphy and Christian all left after the tour. So there was a whole lot going on during this time. Skolnick left. They brought in a couple guys. All of them ended up leaving. It ended up just being Billy and Peterson after the tour for this album. And they kind of put the band on ice for a bit after this tour. I love this album also. I wish they played more of these songs live. They don't, I think, just because there's no Alex Skolnick on here. There's some great songs on this album. Many of them fit right in with what they do now. I just don't think they play them because of the lineup. The lineup changes that happened during that time. I love the song Low. Legions in Hiding, Hail Mary, Trail of Tears is probably the best of their ballads, in my opinion. Now, they put another ballad on here, but that's probably their best one, I think, of all the ballad songs that they tried to write. Shades of War I like, Dogface Gods is crushing. There's no skippers on here for me. I couldn't believe how much I liked this album after The Ritual came out, and then I heard this one. And again, I could not go see them enough times. I saw them all over the place. I saw them at Blossom with opening for Iron Maiden when I got to sing on stage with Iron Maiden, which I covered on the Iron Maiden podcast. Testament was there for that one, and I was there for Testament. Just everywhere. No skippers. This is number 3 for me. I have this as an A. It's not quite up there with Practice What You Preach, but it's really close. Really close. So I have a feeling you're not going to like this one very much. But anyway, what did you think of Low? I have this as an A, number 3.
Yeah, it would have been really good as a Pantera album. It wasn't quite Testament for me still. So yeah, I didn't love it. It's a little more groove, like a groove metal type thing, and Chuck Billy's doing more of a Phil Anselmo type thing, especially with his screams. He has a different range, definitely, than Phil. So I don't want to compare it too much, but this album was very of its time for me. And I give him credit because a lot of bands, when we get into this time, in the '90s, they just don't really know what to do with what the music is doing. But it's got some really strong points. I love hearing Low live. It's phenomenal. It's crushing. I love Shades of War. Great song. But not a whole lot more. Like this is bottom of the barrel for me. Just couldn't really get into it, and maybe I haven't spent a lot of time with this album, so maybe that's part of it. But for me, this is number 11. It's still a C plus. Again, they don't have bad stuff. I enjoy listening to almost everything. But this is kind of the line for me where it's kind of like, it's they have 11 really good albums for me, and this is just the bottom of the really good albums. So if I have to choose, this is just going to be number 11. So C plus, 11, low, just not my thing. Another rough one coming up here just to kind of spoil that, but then they're going to hit their stride again with me very fast. So don't quit on me yet, Testament. I haven't quit on you. Just wait.
Yeah, so let me move on to so we disagree pretty heavily there.
There's always one.
There is, but it's a little different for me. I've got 30 years with this album.
Yeah, right.
I listened to this album right when it came out. I saw them all over the place.
Yeah.
Like to me, this is Testament minus Alex Skolnick. It still sounds like Testament to me.
It does.
It's just it's a little different. I agree, and I do miss Alex Skolnick, which kind of surprised me that I liked it as much as I did because I didn't think that I would. Because I'm like, yeah, James Murphy, like the stuff he had done up until that point, I'm like, I don't know if that's really going to be a fit. But he wasn't in the band long. I mean, he left anyway. But I just, with Peterson and Billy, it's just still, I don't know, it still sounded like Testament. Yeah, it started to change a little bit, and it started to go in the direction that this album is now. So when we get to Demonic here, this is the direction they were going. So they had the Ritual that was just like a heavy metal album, and then they went with Low, which was a little bit deeper, sometimes death metal, but definitely more aggressive metal, thrash-ish, definitely a more aggressive style. And then Demonic, which is now, this is just a full-on death metal album. So this is Doug Hall, Chuck Billy, Eric Peterson produced. Derek Ramirez on bass, who was the band's original guitarist. He came back to play bass on this album. Glenn Alvarez played guitar, and this is Gene Hoglan on drums for the first time, who's going to be with them for a little while here. This is a death metal offering. Just it sounds nothing like anything before or since that they've done, really. This is it's a pretty forgettable album. There's a good moment here and there, but they lost the melody of Testament on this one. It's just super Cookie Monster vocals. Maybe if I had to pick a favorite on this one, it's maybe The Burning Times. I mean, maybe. I do have to mention they put out a really good live album between Low and this album called Live at the Fillmore. It's fantastic DVD and CD. But good thing there aren't any of these songs on it. So that's a good thing for me. I mean, the album cover is weird. I don't know what they were doing there. It's like some kind of weird pinhead kind of thing. But I don't know what that is. But this is mostly skip worthy for me. So if I'm looking to listen to Testament, I'm not listening to this album. So otherwise, it's not awful to put on in the background. Right. Yeah. So I'm going to give this a D, but I'm going to give this a D for Testament.
Right.
Not for the album that it is, just in general. Because if somebody just put this on, I'd be like, who is this? I mean, it kind of sounds like Chuck Billy, but the rest of it doesn't sound anything like Testament. But even the Chuck Billy stuff doesn't sound like much like him either. So, but would I really turn this garbage off? Would that come out of my mouth? Probably not. It's not terrible. So, but for them, it's a D, and I had a hard time even putting it as a D because I love this band so much. But this album, it just sounds nothing like Testament.
Yeah. I got you frozen, partner. I'll go ahead and start my opinion. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay. You had just went on. You froze a little bit. So
sorry. Yeah. What did you think of Demonic, sir?
So I'm right along with you.
I gave it a D for Demonic.
D for Demonic. I actually gave it a C minus for
all right. Well, fair
a little less than D. I don't know, whatever. But there's some cool riffs here. I can still hear Eric Peterson riffing away. It sounds good. Quality is good, but yeah, it's too much. The vocals I think are kind of what sets it apart for me. Like I need Chuck doing the mixture of his gruffness with some melody. It's just not here.
Nope,
It's
nowhere.
just rough for me. Just I love me some Gene Hoglan. He's a friend of the band Opeth, which I like. He's done when I saw them when their drummer left a couple years ago. He filled in on the tour, so that was cool to see him drum with Opeth. So I do like my boy Gene Hoglan, and I do like his drumming coming up in the next couple albums. But this one just isn't going to do it for me. I like the riffs. Demonic Refusal, The Burning Times is pretty cool. Hatred's Rise has a cool riff. But other than riffs, I really can't say I like too much about this. This is a C minus and number 12. Just not my thing, and I'm sure there's people out there that really like it, and they really went into the heavy, but for me, just no. Not for me. C minus 12. I'm a fan of the next one a lot more.
Right. Okay. Well, on to the next one we go. The Gathering, June 8th, 1999. 11 songs. Chuck Billy, Eric Peterson, and Phil Arnold, who I think is their manager now too, I believe. He was on producing this album. This kind of continues with a bit of the death metal elements, but like I said, you went from the Ritual and you kind of went down to Low, then you went down to Demonic, and now you're kind of coming back out of Demonic back into Testament again.
Yep.
With the Gathering. This sounds more like Testament, thank God. So this is way better for me than Demonic, but still a long way from what I really love that they do. So it doesn't mean that there aren't good songs on here, because I do like a few of these songs a lot. But this is still kind of a ways off from the Practice What You Preach New Order stuff that I love so much. But it does sound a lot more like Testament than Demonic did. Steve DiGiorgio is now in on this one, along with Dave Lombardo on drums. Chuck sounds a lot more like himself here. I really like DNR, a song they still play live. I like True Believer a lot, a song I wish they played live, but they don't. And I like 3 Days in Darkness a lot, a ton. I love that song. They do still play that one live too. Skippers for me on this one: Eyes of Wrath, Legions of the Dead, Allegiance. Wasn't a real big fan of some of those. There's just some highlights and some skippers on this one for me. It's not terrible overall. It just feels like a ways off from the stuff that I love that they did. So I have this as a C. I have this down at number 11, but that doesn't mean that I hate it. I do still go back to this album. Especially when I'm going to see them live, because I know they're going to play 2 or 3 songs off of here. They always do. So those are definitely highlights to see live also. So some of my friends were like, man, I can't believe you even like those songs. And I'm like, well, when you see them live do they're undeniably good. So just like I said, some highlights, some skippers, not terrible, just a ways off from where I like Testament the most. So what did you think of The Gathering?
Yep, I like The Gathering. The Gathering is good for me. Admittingly so, was my entry point. Like I said, this is the first Testament album that I bought. I didn't buy it when it first came out, but I bought it when it was in that album cycle. And just really, really liked it. It didn't really leave my car. I had just gotten my license not that long ago, and it was in my rotation of my CDs. I really, really liked it. Like these are when I think classic Testament, this is, to me, that's what it is. Like my first entrance to them, and I think these songs are great. Where I said where the last album that the riffs kind of saved it for me. I think the riffs are phenomenal here. Like to me, that's what sells it. And like you said, Chuck is back to singing again, which thank God. I'm glad he didn't decide that he was going to continue to go down the demonic route. But man, I love this album. Like the songs that you mentioned, I absolutely love. But I love every song on here. I don't really have any skippers. I think I just probably spent so much time just playing the you could only throw one CD in and just kind of let it go sometimes. And
You didn't have the 30 disc changer in your trunk?
Not until I was like, I think probably 2002, 2003, I got my first 6-disc changer, but it was in the trunk, so I had to load up the 6
Yeah,
discs
you
before
load
I
up your
even.
6 favorites,
Yeah.
right? Because you can't just go and change them out.
Exactly, right. I'd have to, and there were times I would head to the grocery store, pop a new 6 in,
Sure.
when I was throwing groceries in the back, whatever. But yeah, I really like this album, and to me, it's all the things like, memories, and driving around for like the first time in my life, and like
Windows
buying what I wanted to
down.
buy. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I finally got to choose what music I wanted to buy and listen to, and
This
I
came
was.
out in June, so you got warm weather, you got the
Yep.
windows cranked down and cranked up, blowing your speakers out.
Yeah. Oh, and I did. I blew those speakers out hard. So love the Gathering. Number 4 for me. It's a B plus. Just legendary riffs for me. Every time I hear these live, it gives me goosebumps. I just feel like it takes me back to simpler times. Back in my day, I listened to Testament in my car in the
Yeah,
CD.
in my disc changer, exactly. Like on your what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, what are you talking about, Dad? I put it on Spotify now. But yeah, no, The Gathering, number 4, B plus, just good stuff.
All right. Sounds good. Okay, so then they put out a lot of weird stuff. There's some live stuff they put out. They redid First Strike Still Deadly. They put out the Spitfire collection. They put out a bunch of different stuff, but it wasn't a new album. This was the time that they were still going through lineup changes. They didn't know who was going to be on this album. Chuck Billy was getting treated for cancer prior to this album coming out. So there's a lot of reasons this album got pushed back, even though they had said as early as 2002 they were working on this. But this didn't come out until April 29th of 2008. So it's like 9 years from their last studio album. This was produced just by Eric Peterson and Chuck Billy. Alex Skolnick and Greg Christian are back in the band. For the
What other
first
Slayer
time.
drummer is drumming for us?
Hang on, I'm getting there. For the first time since 1992 and 94 for those two guys. And this is the only album with Paul Bostaph on drums. So here he is. So more Slayer drummers. So they
Yeah.
just keep rotating them through. Steve Zetro Souza with many writing credits on this album. So I thought that was interesting. That's what I had mentioned, that I'm finding out stuff that I didn't know. I didn't realize he was that involved with a few of these albums here, with writing credits. So I didn't realize he was still that close with the band. So as I said, Chuck Billy, was treated. That's a crazy story that, for time reasons, I'm not going to really get into too much. But he kind of claims that he went to this Indian like sweat and
I heard that.
basically sweated the cancer out and took a giant dump when he
Yeah.
left, and he thinks that he crapped out the cancer. That's what he thinks happened. So
I believe him.
who am I to argue with the guy? I mean, the
I'm
dude.
not.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with him, but sounded a little far fetched when I heard it. But whatever the case, he's still around. This was 2008. This is almost 20 years ago now, and he's still around. He's still doing great. So thank God for that. That's all I can go with. However, he got it out of him.
And boy, did
Pushing
he ever.
whatever. Oof, that'd be rough. He said he took the biggest dump of his whole life, and then he said next thing he got tested and there was no more cancer. So divine intervention, I guess.
Yeah.
For me, this is a return to Testament greatness. Once again, the two guitar thrash riffs and solos I missed so much while Alex Skolnick was gone. There is nothing that sounds like these two guys together. You mentioned it earlier. It's just magical. I was so happy that they were back together. They are still together in the band, but this was the top for me. I don't know if it's because it took them 8 years or whatever to write it and whatever, but this one is the best of these 4 albums. And for me, it's not even really close. Not that the other ones are bad, but it's not even close because I love this album so much. My favorites on here are More Than Meets the Eye, Evil Has Landed, which is a song about 9/11, which that was one that they wrote probably in 2002 or 2003, not in 2008. Dangers of the Faithless, The Henchman Ride. I can go on and on. Every song on this album, there's 11 songs on here. Every one of them I like. There's no skippers. This is an A. This is number 4. I love this album. This is a total return to greatness for me. It has the hooks. It has it has the melody. Chuck's singing. It sounds as good as ever. The 2 guitars are back. It's fantastic. What did you think of the formation of Damnation?
You loved it. I loved it even more. This
Nice.
is awesome.
Nice.
I freaking
Love
love
it.
this album. Yeah,
Me too.
this was like my first like taste of getting an amazing album by them, where it just
Makes sense.
it just hit. So yeah, I got this one.
Because starting with The Gathering, you couldn't have known really the greatness of Skolnick and Peterson and like writing like current stuff, you know.
Other than Going Back, you know,
Yeah.
which I I love the New Order, and that was to
true.
me this is the closest to getting that magic of the New Order
album.
But yeah, for me, it's favorites, everyone, skippers, laughing, LOL. This is so damn good. It's to me, it's the songs aren't quite as legendary as the New Order, but now you have better production. So it like kind of evens itself out. It's
a little bit longer songs, you know. Some of these are 2 minutes longer than the New Order song. New Order's kind of short. This one's 50 minutes.
Yes. No, and I love every second of it. This easy. I'll make it easy. This is number 2, basically almost a tie for number 1. I got to put New Order 1, but this is the formation of number A and letter 2.
This is one of the ones that I was telling you that I kind of flip-flopped earlier today. I had Low number 4 and this one number 3. That's how much I like this album. And I love Low.
Yeah.
So, and I had switched them because I'm like, I just have so much more history with Low because it was 14 years before this album. But if you ask me again tomorrow, I'll probably switch them back because I absolutely love this album. I can't get enough of it. I listen to it again. I'm like, let's see. It's been a little while since I listened to it. Let's see if this holds up as much as I loved it then. And it did, and then some. I'm like, oh my God, I love all these songs. Why don't I listen to this more often? That's what I kept saying to myself.
This is the one I go back to the most, and it's not even close. Like,
nice.
If I'm in a Testament mood, I'm like, I'll flip through Spotify, I'll land on this almost every time. Nice. It has the most listenability to me to come back to.
Nice. It's funny too because I could see when I was talking about it. I happened to see you smiling over there.
Yeah,
and it kind of gave it away.
I was glowing.
It was funny. Yeah, I was like, man, he loves this one too. All right, so on to Dark Roots of Earth, July 31st, 2012. Now this is at a point where, like, every 4 years they're going to come out with an album, and every time Chuck Billy says, man, I don't want to do that again. I want to come out with an album. Can't we just get ahead of things? Can't we write riffs earlier, get it out every 2 years, maybe 3 years? Every time something happens, and every time it comes out in 4 years for some reason.
Yeah.
Produced by Andy Sneap, which is also helpful. He mixed Formation of Damnation, which helped the sound of that one a lot. And he produced this one. This one sounds amazing. Also, probably their coolest album cover of their career, I think. If you see this one, it's like what is that, like Neptune or something? The god like in the mountain. Like that's a fantastic album cover. Again, Zetra Souza with a few more songwriting credits. Gene Hoglan, your man Gene Hoglan is back again.
He's back
for Paul Bostaph. It's the last album with Mr. Christian as well. The guitar work is outstanding again on this album. I can listen to these two guys play all the time. I never get sick of listening to Alex Skolnick and Eric Peterson play guitar, ever. They're just so good together. They put out such great stuff. It's not too much different from Formation of Damnation, maybe a little faster. And I know this is going to sound blasphemous to you, but I'm not a big fan of Hoglan's sometimes blast beat style.
Yeah, I get it.
He calms it down in the next couple albums, which I appreciate. But on this one, it really kind of bothers me. And I even put 2 songs on here in particular, Native Blood and True American Hate. Like it's like he's playing a different song than the rest of the band on a couple of these songs. I know this is nitpicky. The dude's a fantastic drummer. He's a legend. But it's just it's too fast. Like I'm like, what is he doing? Like he's just creating this wall of drum sound when it's almost hard to hear what else is going on.
Right.
Like I'm trying to listen to these two outstanding guitar players, and he's just out there bashing away behind them, and I'm like,
Yeah.
just as fast as he possibly can. So I'm glad that didn't continue after this one. It kind of, when he does it doesn't sound like Testament to me. So anyway, again, I mentioned the album cover. It's fantastic. This peaked at number 12 on Billboard, our highest charting album of their career. I was shocked to read that. And my guess is, I always say this, it's always the album after, right? I think that this album peaked at 12 and pretty much right away because Formation and Damnation was so good.
Yeah.
And people did nothing but talk about how great that album was. So when this one came out, everybody rushed out and bought it at the same time, which is what you need to build that mountain of sales in a week to get you to number 12. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
But still, shocked to see that this was number 12 on Billboard and the highest one of their career. I'm like, wow, even the New Order with the videos and like Practice What You Preach, like this one was the highest one, but it is. My favorites on this one, I only have a couple really. Dark Roots of the Earth and Throne of Thorns I liked a lot. Skippers, I was going to say none, but I really don't like Cold Embrace. I mean, I tried to like it while I was listening to it, but I just couldn't do it. I just don't like that song very much. It was just kind of I don't know. So this one is a rated B again. I have a whole bunch of these Bs, the killer Bs here, but this is number 10. I think I have 5 B albums, like 6 through 10 or something crazy like that. So it was really hard. But this one is kind of the bottom of the B barrel, I think, for me. It's still really good Testament. I mean, as a B. I mean, it's not like I rated it as a D. It's not like I hate it, but it's just not nearly as good as Formation and Damnation is. It just isn't.
Yeah.
It's really good Testament stuff, except for Cold Embrace, and I just don't feel as connected to the songs, and they aren't as memorable as Formation of Damnation was. It just basically comes down to that, even though it sounds like kind of a continuation of the same thing. So kind of like, in a way, for me, Souls of Black was to Practice What You Preach. This kind of felt like Formation and Damnation's kind of little brother. Yeah. It's kind of weird I didn't even think about this before, but if you look at the album cover, like the colors of the album covers, it's very similar to Practice What You Preach and Souls of Black. This one's really dark. Souls of Black's like black, and it's got the 5 silhouettes on there with the heart. And Practice What You Preach is like orange and like in a desert, and Formation and Damnation is kind of like a brighter colored like album cover. So there's more similarities than I even thought. But anyway, I have this number 10 and a B. What did you think of Dark Roots of Earth?
Yeah, this is a little bit of a letdown for me. So probably because I loved Formation so much that I was pretty disappointed by this. Still, like you said, it's still really, really good. I think maybe just the songs are a little less memorable to me, and I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. And again, I just feel like some of these albums are so top heavy. I really like coming out of the gate with Rise Up and Native Blood, and like you mentioned, Dark Roots of Earth. Really, really good stuff, but the second half is just not very memorable to me.
Yeah, Throne of Thorns is the only one I really liked out of any of those.
Yeah, like a lot of it. I think you mentioned Cold Embrace. Man Kills Mankind. I don't know, just kind of to me is kind of like floats along.
Yeah.
But I did see them on this tour. After I saw them at I believe it was the year before that at Tower City. I saw them House of Blues with Anthrax.
Yeah, that's the one I broke my foot at. That one.
Oh, okay.
2011. 2000.
I was at that show, and they played. I can't even remember what.
You probably saw me limping out of there. I was sitting up in the balcony.
I probably did. You know what? Maybe they didn't have any songs on this yet because it came out in. I don't remember.
This came out in 2012. I want to say they played a song or two off.
Maybe, of this, they might have, but anyway, not my favorite, but it's still good. Like you said, it's still Testament. For me, it's a B-, but it's still a B-. I remember listening to this all the time. I remember always being a little disappointed. Like, just didn't quite live up to being one of my favorites. So for me, it's number 8. So it's still pretty good. B-. Dark Roots of Earth. Has its place in the catalog, and I really appreciate it. But I don't really think they play anything live off of it.
I was trying to think. And like, do they play anything live off of this now? I don't think they
I
did. I
don't
don't
think
think
they
they played a
do.
single song off of this. Even just October when I saw them. Although that was more of the, the Legacy and New Order stuff. But
Yeah,
even the time before that I saw them, which I think was in 2023. I don't think they played anything off of this one.
yeah, no. Was that when they played with Exodus, the
Yeah.
Death Angel? I
Yep.
was at that
Yep.
show. They did not. So
No.
anyway, yeah. So not bad, but number 8 and B minus for Dark Roots.
All right. On to Brotherhood of the Snake. So this is the second to last album for them so far, although they are saying, I think this year, this now it's been 5 years and not 4 years, but I think now is when they are coming out with the next album. I don't think they've named it yet, but they should have one out this year. Um, anyway, Brotherhood of the Snake, October 28th, 2016. 10 songs on here. This is Eric Peterson and Chuck Billy produced. Steve DiGiorgio is back with them, replacing Christian, who left. Eric Peterson hinted early on in this cycle of touring and writing more for Dark Roots and writing for this album that there was some possible inner strife and politics in the band with members that maybe weren't 100% in. And if things didn't continue to go well, that these members may leave.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking maybe he was talking about Greg Christian, who left, a couple years later than when he said that, due to, guess what, differences with the band and money discrepancies. So kind of the things that he said, if you read between the lines, it's kind of the reasons that Christian left. So anyway, they're better off with DiGiorgio anyway. He's just a phenomenal bass player. This album is more of the same as the last two albums. It's solid stuff. It's a little bit better for me than Dark Roots, but not as good as Formation. This is
Yeah.
somewhere in between the two for me. Chuck Billy said about recording of this album that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that's pretty much what they continue to do, even on to the next album. They did the same thing. My favorites here are the Pale King and Seven Seals. I really don't have anything on this one that I skip, but I do have this one as a B. It's just a solid album. Not a whole lot stands out other than those two songs to me. Can of Business is a little wonky. Ace is high, and so am I. Like, okay. So it's a little weird, but it's all still solid. This is a B. This is number 9 for me. It's another one of the B albums. What did you think of Brotherhood of the Snake?
Yeah, to me, it's started to get a little stale for me, and I just feel like it was the same album again. So to me, I had to put it right next to it to Dark Roots. To me, again, it's identical. Like, to me, the songs are okay. It sounds pretty good, but it's like, after I'm done listening to it, I only really remember the first probably 4 songs off of it.
Yeah.
So another top heavy album for me that I don't really remember much of anything else after. I do like the title track. I do like the Pale King. Stronghold is pretty good, and then Seven Seals. I think those were like the 4 that they played live.
And those are first 3 of the first 4 songs.
Well,
exactly. First 4 songs, just
first
like you
4.
said. Yep.
So it's okay. It's good. It's a C plus for me. I just kind of had to say, am I going to put it before Dark Roots or am I going to put it after? And for me, it was after. So number 9. We're right on the same path there.
Yeah.
Brotherhood of the Snake, just good, solid. I'd rather them keep putting out albums than not. But
right.
To me, I feel like this last one coming up, the songs maybe were a little bit better, so that's kind of what gave it a little push ahead. But
yeah,
Brotherhood of the Snake, it just felt way too similar, almost carbon copy. It's just funny that you said the comment, if it doesn't broke, don't fix it. Yeah, well, maybe you can make it a little different. It doesn't you don't have to go demonic on it, but maybe
it isn't broke because these albums are still charting, high enough, I guess. Like, but I want to say Brotherhood was in the 20 or something. It got to. So again, people are buying these, and people are going to going to see their shows. They're headlining shows, and they're making money. They're buying merch. So I guess for them, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I want another Formation of Damnation, but.
Sure.
again, like you said, I'm also okay with them just putting out albums. I mean, because these aren't crap
No,
albums.
they're good.
They're
Yeah.
just they're not that good. I want obviously we all want all the best stuff. So
Yep.
these are not the best stuff, but
Yeah.
they're still really good stuff. So
I still enjoyed listening to it, but
right,
like I
me
said,
too.
to me,
Me
just
too.
ninth best C plus. So
Yeah. All right. So on to Titans of Creation, April 3rd, 2020. So another 4 years go by. 12 songs here. This is Eric Peterson, Chuck Billy, and Juan Ortega is on board to produce. I think he mixed, kind of like Andy Sneap did. I think he mixed the previous album, and now he's producing this one. This is the first time with the same lineup since The Ritual in 1992, when they had the 5 albums of all the same lineup. But that didn't last long because Gene Hoglan has now left after this album. So, and now they have Chris Dovis, who I mentioned earlier, who they will be recording with on their next album. The album was delayed a bit, and Chuck even said like he got to Eric and told him, "Hey man, can you start writing some riffs like while we're on the road, and can we kind of get ahead of this thing so we don't keep taking 4 years to put out an album?" Well, then Slayer comes around and says they want to do a farewell tour and they want Testament to be a part of it. So they're not going to say no. I mean, hell, they've had all their drummers in their band. So, I mean, what are they going to do? So they're like, okay, well, they'll do that. And then they kind of put off the recording of the album and it took 4 years again. Um, Del James, now he keeps popping up as a songwriter. This is another album. He's on a bunch of songs. And I'm like, who's Del James? So I looked this up. I never knew this. This was another interesting story that I found. He's the road manager for Guns N' Roses. He's a really close friend of Axl Rose. He also wrote the short story that the song November Rain is based on by Guns N' Roses. Never knew any of this stuff. He's got a lot of songwriting credits on this album and really the last 4 albums. Like since they came back, Formation and Damnation till now, there's Del James as a songwriting partner on a handful of songs on each album. So thought that was interesting. I just never knew who he was, and then looked him up. There's still a songwriting credit for Zetro Souza on this album too. Just one now, not half the songs like there was before. But maybe he should co-write some more because he was on about half of those Formation of Damnation songs. So those are fantastic. So maybe get him more involved and not less involved. This is just more typical Testament of the last 15 years. I also read this from a reviewer which I thought was a great term, and I'm gonna use this a lot from now on. There's lots of guitarmonies.
yes,
I'm like, huh,
it's
guitarmonies.
harmony.
How did I never put that together? That's great. A lot of great guitarmonies and great riffs. And I'm like, huh. All right. So favorites on this one: Children of the Next Level I like a lot. Night of the Witch I like a lot. Symptoms I like, and The Healers I like. I don't really have any skippers on this one. It's all really solid. This is another B. I feel like this is kind of ahead of the last 2, but definitely behind Formation of Damnation. So this is a little bit of a step up, but not a big step up. Still a B, still kind of the same rating. Surely the next album will be more of the same, although I'm hoping for a little bit more like Formation of Damnation. But if this is what they put out, I'll take it and enjoy it just like I did these albums. So letter B, rating number 8 for me. What did you think of Titans of Creation?
Yeah, so this one, I agree with you. I think it's a step up over the last 2, but the problem with it is it's too long, and there's a lot of stuff here. We had an hour of Testament, and to me,
That is getting to kind of be a lot.
it's too
You're
much.
right. Yeah.
It's too much Testament. Like, it's not good enough that I want to listen to it for an hour. And I think that's what's great about the other albums is it's a good 40-minute listening experience. This just gets a little long on the tooth, I think. Good stuff though. Production's good. They're still killing it. You mentioned Children of the Next Level. I really like that a lot. I do like World War III and Night of the Witch. The rest just kind of flows for me. It's good. I like it. It's good. So it's a little bit ahead of the last 2. I guess maybe not quite as cookie cutter as the last 2 in my mind. Maybe a little bit more progressive almost. Like
Okay.
like longer musical sections, like more kind of like riffing and soloing, and so I do like the solos. I think Skolnick kind of steps up his game a little bit more here than the last
I
two.
agree with you. Yep. I agree with you there. I should have
Totally,
mentioned that.
yeah, but
Totally missed that.
so that to me that's what kind of moves this ahead. So or along the same thing, it's a B, basically like all these, like you said, Killer Bees.
Yeah.
It jumped up to number 6 for me, and maybe
Okay.
that's because it's the newest. Maybe it's because it's the most recent that I've kind of gotten into, but I like it. For maybe cutting a few songs off, maybe it would even be better for me. But right now, I like it solidly in the B range as number 6. So good stuff. It's still good. I'll take another one like it, maybe a little shorter.
Yeah. Right. Well, we should have one here pretty soon. They're apparently still working on that, and sounds like I think I read there should be a single, the first song out end of April or May, and then the album should be out July or August. That's what they're saying now. So
All
we
right.
shall see.
Well,
So
I will be seeing them May 9th at Sonic Temple.
nice.
I'm actually very, very excited for that day. It's kind of unlike what Sonic Temple does. They have a whole day of like thrash. It's kind of bizarre. So check
I was
out
gonna
the
say, do you
lineup.
have this pulled up? Like, I pull
Yeah.
up. I want to hear about this.
So they basically have a thrash day. So Friday, which is day 2 of Sonic Temple Festival, Metallica's headlining, and then we have Rob Zombie and Alice Cooper
They're
as
headlining 2 of the days, right? Friday and
they are.
Sunday.
Yes,
Okay.
they are. So they're doing Friday and Sunday, but Friday is the thrash day. So Metallica, Rob Zombie, Alice Cooper.
So you say Rob Zombie and Alice Cooper immediately. I'm like, really? That's the thrash day?
No, 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 no.
Hey, no, I got you. It's just
I
funny.
felt like they had to put them on there just for main stage for the name purposes.
Yeah,
Check
right.
out all these other names, okay? Testament, Exodus, Overkill, Mastodon, Acid Bath, Suicidal Tendencies, Cannibal Corpse, Hatebreed, Municipal Waste, Gate Creeper, Armored Saint, Whitechapel, Black Dahlia Murder, After the Burial, The Acadia Strain, Upon a Burning Body. Like it's just brutal.
That is a brutal lineup for
Oh,
sure.
Converge, I miss Converge too. They're classic as well.
I'm going to tell you, I'm about done with the hype over Acid Bath. The band has got, now the album's good, but it was
Yeah.
30 years ago and they put one album out.
I
People
know.
are talking like, like Lemmy's coming back and Motorhead's going to play. I'm like, this Acid Bath, man, come
Right.
on.
Yeah.
Like, they're good, but they're not that good. I'm just kind of over that whole hype. Like you say, I just hear Acid Bath right now and I roll my eyes because that's all anybody wants to talk about is Acid Bath is playing again. I'm like, who cares?
Well, I kind of care. Like I
That's
want to see
fine.
them.
I'm sure they'll be good, but
Yeah.
oh my god, they're not headlining the main stage for God's
No, they're
sake,
not.
You know?
They're not.
But anyway, yeah, the rest of that stuff though, man, that is a brutal day. Wow, you're gonna be tired, man.
Oh, I know. Well, the funny thing is, so I'm going with my wife, my son, and then Sam, who you met when we went to Lamb of God together. So we're all going. Basically, my wife's like, "Yeah, we're gonna go probably do something else that day." I was like, "I don't blame you." Like,
you go on your own. You and your son just go on your own.
Yeah, I'm trying to imagine my wife.
Is he into that heavier stuff too, your son?
No, he likes Metallica. He likes Megadeth, those type of things, but
not so much like Whitechapel and Black Dahlia. And I'm not into a lot of those bands too, to be honest with you. Some of those are a little too extreme for me, but
yeah, I'm not into them like to listen to their albums, but I like seeing those type of bands live. Like, I can get into that.
Definitely seen my share of them for sure.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
That is, man. Now, when you go, do you stay in their RV too, or do you guys camp like next to it, or so there's enough room in there for you to stay in the whole?
It's a full size RV. So,
wow.
So Sam and then her husband usually comes for a day or two.
Okay.
They go up. They have a bedroom up front where there's like a big queen size bed or whatever.
Okay.
It's like its own little compartment, and then there's the back, which is like the living area. It's like a little kitchen area, and then you can pull out. There's couches on both sides, and they both can pull out and meet in the
Okay.
middle. So, like me and my wife can share one. One year, Sam's son went. This year, he's not going. My son's going, so he'll have his own little
Nice.
place. So yeah, so we all just camp, and you
Yeah,
can
so
come
that's
and go
great
if
because
you
then you
want.
don't worry about it raining or anything like that. So that's good.
Like if there's a day you don't want to go until 3, 4 o'clock, you could do that.
Yeah,
It's
right.
kind of do whatever you want, or I want something to eat, just head back and have a
Yeah,
couple beers, and like
right.
I wouldn't pay for any beers at those type of things anymore.
No, no. That's interesting. Now, do they wand you and everything going back in every time? Like when
Yeah,
you, yeah,
it's not
okay.
really a wand. They have things you walk
Just the
through.
arch. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
exactly. So yeah, they got a thing down. It's not a big
I just
deal.
wondered how much of like the security you had to go in and out of because only you guys can leave and come back in.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
obviously they're going to check you so you're not bringing in whatever, but I
Exactly. It's
wondered
more
how
just
much they
metal
really
detector.
would. Yeah, so
I mean,
that's not so bad.
no, you could sneak stuff in, if you really
Sure,
wanted
sure.
to.
I mean, I always do no matter where I
Yeah.
go, but
Yeah. As
but
long as you're not bringing in weapons, then
yeah,
you're
right, right, right. I just wondered, and it's good probably because it's only the campers, so you probably don't have like what I mean is like you don't have a long line.
right. Yeah,
Like
no, it's
it's not
easier.
everybody from the place is coming out and going back in where you got to wait in line to security. Like when you go to Blossom and you're waiting in line of security for 20 minutes before you can
Sure.
even get in there. So
No, it's
as
nothing
long as
like
it's
that.
not like that, that's pretty awesome. And that's honestly, if I'm ever going to do a festival again, that sounds like the way to go right there.
I
'Cause
agree.
I like the in and out privileges. I'm getting older. I can't just go stand all day, for
Yeah.
14 hours or whatever.
Sure.
But I do love, going to those and seeing a lot of those bands. It's just the standing and the waiting in line for food and bathrooms and all that stuff. That's what gets me. That's what
Sure.
I really don't like. So, and the
Totally get it.
parking, which camping takes care of all of that
All of
stuff.
those things, yeah.
So, but I don't have a camper either. So, but that's
Yeah.
why I asked, like, if there was, I have tents. Kelly and I have,
Yeah.
have camped in tents. Camping is intense,
Sure.
but we've camped in tents. Plenty of
Crazy.
times. So
Yeah.
maybe that's something we'll consider doing someday. And then if we're not liking things or just want to go chill, we just go back but we can just set up right next to the RV or
Yeah.
whatever, so
Heck yeah.
something worth thinking about. So
Yep.
anyway,
All
a little
right. Guess
sidebar there. We had some time. So
it's all good. All right. Go ahead and give me your 12-1 test.
overall, number 12, Demonic. Number 11, The Gathering. Number 10, Dark Roots of Earth. Number 9, Brotherhood of the Snake. Number 8, Titans of Creation. Number 7, Souls of Black. Number 6, Legacy. Number 5, Ritual. Number 4, Formation of Damnation. Number 3, Low. Number 2, New Order. Number 1, Practice What You Preach. How about you, partner?
All right.
Give them to me.
Number 12, Demonic. Number 11, Low. Number 10, The Ritual. Number 9, The Brotherhood of the Snake. Number 8, Dark Roots of Earth. Number 7, Souls of Black. Number 6, Titans of Creation. Number 5, Practice What You Preach. Number 4, The Gathering. Number 3, The Legacy. Number 2, Formation of Damnation. And number 1, The New Order. And there we have it.
There is Testament.
And Testament we have.
Great stuff.
And we will not be live next week. We will be binging for U2. So we're going to, when we're doing two-parters now, what we're going to do is we're not going to do half and half. We're going to take a week off, listen to all the albums, and then we'll do maybe a little longer episode the following week. So for U2 will be our first time with that. Next week will not be live. The week after, we're going to do all of U2's albums. So wish us luck, and may the Lord have mercy on our souls.
On our Souls of Black.
And our souls of black, yes. And a little announcement too, the week after that, we are going to be welcoming our buddy John Drake from Talking Into Infinity. He will be joining us for his favorite band, Van Halen.
Is Brian joining us too for that one, or just John?
No,
Okay.
just John. I think we will have the time covered between him. Like, he absolutely worships Van Halen. So I feel like that's probably a couple hours of material right there. With
there's a lot to cover with them too. I'm a huge fan of them also,
Same.
both versions. So
absolutely,
that's that should be a great one, and that'll make up for the U2-ness of the next couple weeks. I don't want to make it sound that bad, but neither one of us are huge fans of U2.
No.
But they have so many fans. We felt that we were going to have to do them eventually, so we're just going to get into it and do it now.
Yeah,
so
use just a tough letter.
There's not many. There's Uriah Heep and UFO and Udo. I mean, there's just not a lot of stuff that a lot of people listen to, but U2 is a band that a lot of people listen to. So
absolutely. So
we thought we need to do that. So
we'll dig in, and maybe we'll find some stuff we like that we didn't know that we liked. Or
never
know.
You never know.
So all right,
the words right out of my mouth.
Well, thanks, partner. Testament was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Really like listening to that.
Can't get enough of Testament. Still can't.
Totally agree, and I can't wait to see them coming up here. So excited. So
kind of jealous. I'm a little jealous.
Yeah. All right, partner. Well, we will see you in 2 weeks for a double dose of U2. So we will see you in the next one.
That's right. Rock on.
Looks like you've been missing a lot of work lately.
I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
What would you say you do here?
God damn it. Bob, we love playing here tonight. My brother's ready.
It helps if you think of it as a game, Bob. Every game has a winner and a loser.
You must possess strength to inflict pain, Bob.